Hey everybody, this is Mark Friedman from Tulip, and this is part two of a multi-part series of videos I'm making that are basically outlining an application or showcasing a suite of applications that are meant to be able to be used pretty immediately by you on your production floor. So the idea of these applications is that you can download this app, or we can upload it to your instance, and you can deploy it right away to your work centers. Maybe it's an assembly cell, machining work center, and you'll have production visibility right away. So that's the idea of these applications. But they're all, why this is a series is because they're all built under the same underlying architecture. So if you understand how one is built, then you'll understand how the others are built, because we just keep adding on to it and adding different features to the same underlying principle. So with that said, for this video to make sense, you should watch the previous video first, because that's the basic production tracker, which I'm showing you here. That video explained how you could use this application to just increment an output from a cell and then check that against a target, something like an hourly scorecard. Today what we're going to do, or in this video what we're going to do, is go over what if we added yield to that. So definitely watch that first video. Otherwise, I'm going to be skipping over a lot of the functionality that would have been explained in the previous video. All right, so let's just log in here. So I'm logging into the player of Tulip, and then here's the application. And then, excuse me, you may remember that the last time when we, in the previous video, when we opened up the application on that station for the first time, it had recognized that we hadn't set default parameters for units per hour and units each cycle, so it asked us to input those. This is the first time we've run this app on this station, assembly 2, and this app requires that you have a target for yield. So I'm going to put in 90 here, and this is only going to show up the first time you initialize this app on a station. And we'll go through how that works in the programming here, but basically an associate is going to go right through this screen and instead show up right here. This is what they're going to see normally. And this is just like the other application. Right now there's a timer going off in the background, which is going to increment our goal every minute or whenever I push something in accordance with the rate of the model that's selected here. So right now, after a minute, we should expect this goal to go up 1. And that's basically how it works. But you have 2 buttons now. So one button here is good, which allows you to increment your output here. So I have one good part completed, and it also shows me my yield here. The goal is a rounded number, and it rounded up from the target of 0.63, but this is going to increase without rounding. This value here is going to increase throughout the hour. So this is my actual output, this is my target, and I have one good against one target here. So I'm going to press this again, and now I'm 2 to 1. Things are looking up. So this is the same functionality as the previous app. What's different now, though, is I have this yield function, and I can actually indicate I have a bad part. So let's do that, the bad part. So I should pick a reason for my bad part, and these can be changed, but I'll pick reason 2. I can write a comment, broken, and then quantity bad. So let's say the person on this work center found 10 bad parts. I don't want them to go through this process 10 times, because that would be annoying. So instead, they can just type in they have 10 bad. In this case, we're just going to say we have 1 bad. So we'll continue. And now you see we have 1 bad, 2 good. The goal is increased to 2 at this point. You can see the hourly scorecard updating, and our yield is now 67%. So this is turned red. So that's how this app works, or that's what it looks like when this app is working. So we've added a whole new layer onto the existing application. Now we can have things like defect paretos. We can see yield trends over time. We can see yield by product or by model. All sorts of things can happen now. So let's look at how this is built. So this part is exactly the same as before. It didn't pop up for us this time because we had already configured our station in the previous video. Here, same exact thing. The only difference is I've added a new requirement here. So now it's checking that the yield target is not blank. If you remember in this one, it's not checking for yield targets. Here it is. So we're checking for the yield target not being blank. And if there's something in it, then we're just going to push through to the first page. If there isn't something in it, then we're going to stay here, and it's going to ask you to fill it in like we did. All right, so now we're up to the main page now. So this is how this thing works. So you'll recognize update time is the same, color change actual is the same, and auto is the same. So what we're doing is we're adding two new triggers here. One is going to be update yield. So pretty straightforward. Store good over good plus bad. Multiply by 100, and then save that in our yield actual. And our yield actual is what's going to be displayed here. So let's see how it looks. All right, so we're falling behind here. Let's get up here a little bit. Yeah, now we're winning. Nice, we're in. Okay, so yeah, so that's how the update yield works. Pretty straightforward. Then the other one we've added is color change yield. So this is just like the other one. We're going to say if yield is blank, then just make it blank, the colors. If it's greater than or equal to your yield target, make it green. And if it's not any of those things, make it red. So that's how the color variable function works. So that's all basically. You see how it's pretty easy once you figure out how the whole thing works to add on to it. So let's look at our bad button here, because this button's new. So what this button's doing is just going to go right to a reason step. So all the logic that happens on this good button, this hasn't changed at all, but we're going to delay that logic until after the reason step. So the reason step is where I want to actually collect a few things. I want to collect an input for bad to allow them to change this. And then I want to collect a reason. So there's a variable here, reason, and this is a bunch of drop downs here, so I can add new ones if I want to. And then a comment. And this reason thing is what I'm actually going to use in the analytics to Pareto. And then this continue button is what does the work. So what does this do? Well, this is just like the green button before, or the plus button before. So what I'm doing here is I'm saying, okay, let's store the input number into bad instant. Now, you may remember that we had a good instant and a goal instant. Well, we're adding a bad instant. These are the things that I'm going to sum up during the analytics to understand aggregate numbers of units, good, bad, or targets. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to increment my bad total, which is basically what's being displayed on the screen. So that's that red number here, the bad total, by the instant. So whatever's been decided, I'm going to store into instant, and then I'm going to take instant and I'm going to add it to the bad total. And then, similar to before, we have to do a goal. I want to figure out how much time elapsed and then count that time towards a goal. Then I'm going to increment my goal by the goal instant and then end it. So a lot of the same logic as before. The only thing here is I'm working with bads instead of goods, and I'm storing a reason. So that's how this app works. Let's look at some of the analytics. Yeah, there's really nothing else to this application besides that. Now I'm showing an analytic here, but I don't think we really want to show this here. I'm just displaying it. I think that what you probably want to end up doing at this point is building out a dashboard in front of the cell, or maybe a centralized dashboard. So what do I have going on so far? Well, this is my actual versus my target for Alley scorecard. This is something you could put up on a board somewhere. Here's my defect Pareto. I have one bad, and it's for reason 2. This could be a weekly or a daily or maybe even both. And then here is a yield trend. So yesterday the target was 90, the actual is 88. Today we're right on par. And this can be something that you trend over time, and your target can change over time, and all sorts of things. So this is, you can see what we're doing here, and eventually we will do in one of the future videos, is build out a virtual sort of skewed at board or daily management board. And we're putting the pieces together now. So that's the yield portion of this. Next time what we're going to do is talk about OEE, because it may be interesting to know not only that we're missing our target, but why. Are we in setup too often? Are we idle too often? Are we down? And if we're down, for what reason? So that's the next thing we're going to want to do. Thanks a lot. I hope that was helpful, and look forward to making the next one of these.